Hi, this is Dorothy Guining with Scrapbooking Quebec. In this video, I'm going to show you a different twist on a classic 3-photo scrapbook page design. I'm using the Tranquil Tide Suite by Stampin' Up. I have stamps, dies, and designer series paper. I selected the paper, some cardstock, inks, a journaling box, and 3 horizontal photos. I prepared some of the paper for the foundation in advance, including this large circle. I used the custom cutting system by Creative Memories to cut it, but you could use a Cricut machine, a Silhouette, or you can even cut it by hand if you like. I'm trimming the circle here, and I'm going to fit pieces of it to the extreme right and left side of the page. But before gluing, I'm going to ink the edges of my circle with a sponge dauber. Now, this is a perfect technique to use if you cut the circle by hand, because inking edges of paper is a great way to hide any small imperfections. Now, before gluing the photos to this strip of paper, I'm going to add photo mats, and these photo mats measure 1/4 inch larger than the photo. And this strip of paper with photos is going to be glued to the right-hand side of the page. I'm going to call this design a half and half vertical page design because the photos are going to take up half the page and they're going to be in a vertical line. The other half of the page is going to house the title, text, and some decorations. Now you're going to notice in a minute the letters I will be using as my title. I like big titles, and I often use multi-word titles with different color letters and different sizes. I cut out my letters with a Big Shot machine, and I used 2 different style letters. And I find doing this adds a certain dynamic to the page. Obviously, you need a certain amount of space to do it. You can also stamp your title, you can use letter stickers, or you can hand draw them if you like. I glued mine on wax paper, which gives me a bit of flexibility to play around with. And what you see me doing there is playing around with the journaling box. I found it too small, so what I'm doing here is creating a large tag. That paper measures 4 inches wide, and I trimmed one corner, and I used the scrap to guide me to trim the opposing corner. That gives me kind of a travel tag. And what I'm doing here is finding the middle of the tag, and I'm going to punch a hole in it. And now what I want to do is make a reinforcer for that hole. So to do that, I punched a hole in a piece of cardstock and then punched a circle around the hole to create a ring. Now once I decide the desired length of this tag, I trim it, and what I'm going to do here is ink the edges of the tag. Now I haven't inked the edges of my paper in what seems like a very, very long time. It seemed like it was a popular technique a few years ago, but I decided to do it for this page because it's on a riverside, it's dirty, it's outside, and it just seemed to fit the theme. Also, I'm going to mention again, if you hand cut your circle, it's a great way to hide any imperfections. Now I'm adding some linen thread to the tag, and this is a product I always have on hand. It's a Stampin' Up! Product, and I totally love it. It seems to work for everything. Now I'm going to make the decorations for my page, and I'm going to stamp some octopuses. I don't think you can see it in the video here, but these octopuses are sweet. They're very detailed. There are little bubbles in them. There are stripes on the leg. I totally love them. And now what I'm doing is stamping some vines, and you're going to notice I stamp twice before re-inking, and what that does is it gives me a bit of a variation in the color. This is Mint Macaron ink by Stampin' Up, and the octopus is in Tranquil Tide, also from Stampin' Up. And both of these colors are found in the paper, and that's really the beauty of working with collections. Everything matches. Now I'm getting my dies for this collection to cut out the octopus, and I was pleasantly surprised how easy it was to place these dies on the stamped image. Sometimes when you have an image that has irregular shapes, and I think the octopus can fit into this category, it's hard to place the dies, but this worked really well. And now what I'm doing is cutting out 3 circles from these vines, and I'm using the Stitched Shapes dies from Stampin' Up. Again, that's another one of my favorites from Stampin' Up. Now I'm going to cut some more elements with this crumb cake colored cardstock, and I'm using my precision plate for the Big Shot machine. The reason being is that these dies are quite detailed. I'm using a sponge and a brush to help me get these little pieces of paper out of the die. It's a bit of a pain in the butt, but honestly, the effort was worth it. It's a really, really beautiful textured piece of netting, and it adds a lot to the embellishment clusters. So my title's down, my text is in place, so now what I want to do is set up my embellishment clusters. And what I'm doing is putting a repeated shape in 3 spots on my page where I want to decorate. In this case, I'm using circles. Sometimes I use tags, but I always repeat something in 3 spots before building my clusters. In this case, it's a vertical design, so I kind of put them up and down. Now I'm building my clusters, and the video is going to stop soon. So what happened is all I did was glue down my title, my decorations, I did my journaling, and then I inked the edges of my layout, and that was it. And just in case you were wondering, I am fully aware there were no octopuses in this river in the middle of the jungle, but I use this stamp set anyway because I love it. And that's the fun about scrapbooking. You kind of make your own rules. I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did, please give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to Scrapbooking Quebec, please subscribe and share this video. That would mean a lot to me. Have a great day, and thank you very much.